Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into politics and media. Today, we're looking at Senator Chuck Schumer and his longtime reliance on a fictional middle-class couple named Joe and Eileen Bailey. These two imaginary voters have guided his political decisions for over a decade. We'll break down how Schumer built detailed profiles of their lives, their habits, and even their supposed voting patterns, and how this fantasy has shaped, and sometimes warped, his political strategy. By the end, you'll see why basing national politics on a made-up family is both absurd and surprisingly revealing. Let's dive in. The scene introduces Joe and Eileen Bailey in a suburban setting. They are middle-class, moderate, and culturally representative of the average voter Schumer claims to understand. Animated overlays show their daily routines, political preferences, and suburban lifestyle. Schumer appears in the foreground, gesturing toward their ghostly silhouettes, as if using them as a reference tool for every policy decision. The narrator emphasizes that these characters were created in Schumer's 2007 book and have since shaped his approach to issues ranging from taxes to crime. The suburban home is detailed but idealized, highlighting the gap between this fictional construct and the diverse reality of actual voters. The camera pans over Schumer's 2007 book, pages densely filled with mentions of Joe and Eileen Bailey, over 265 times. Animated arrows connect notes to passages, showing obsessive attention to their habits, values, and political preferences. Close-ups show Schumer annotating pages with meticulous care, highlighting his fixation. The narrator underscores that these fictional voters dominate his strategic imagination, overshadowing real demographic complexity. Visual exaggerations, like swirling lines and repeated text, create a surreal effect, emphasizing the absurdity of relying on a made-up family as a political compass. The Baileys' routines are shown in comic-style montage. Eileen sipping coffee, Joe mowing the lawn, children watching TV. The narrator emphasizes that the level of detail transforms empathy into caricature. Objects in the house are labeled with humorous annotations like Joe's favorite cereal, Eileen's nightly soap, exaggerating the absurdity. Schumer's political focus is narrowly defined by these fictional minutiae, making his policy lens rigid and disconnected from real voter priorities. The visual tone balances satire and critique, showing the fictional Baileys as vivid yet entirely unrepresentative of modern American voters. The Baileys are portrayed as perfect swing voters, socially moderate, fiscally cautious, supportive of pro-choice policies and education tax breaks, but wary of big government spending. Animated graphics map their voter profile like a data chart. Their suburban environment, white picket fences, trimmed lawns, reinforces the idealized fantasy. The narrator notes that using such a narrow archetype risks misaligning policy priorities, ignoring diverse constituencies and contemporary political realities. The scene illustrates how Schumer's imagined voter model prioritizes fantasy over substance. Despite being Schumer's political compass, the Baileys vote predominantly for Donald Trump in 5 of 6 elections. Animated ballots flip across the screen to illustrate their choices. The narrator emphasizes the irony. A politician tailoring policy to a fictional couple repeatedly fails to predict their preferences. Subtle humor shows thought bubbles with Trump rallies and crime headlines, contrasting the idealized model with unpredictable behavior. This highlights the danger of relying on imagined voters for strategic decisions. The Baileys' fear of crime drives many of their decisions. Animated fear bubbles hover over their home, while real-world crime graphs show a national decline. The narrator notes the disconnect between perception and reality. Small satirical details, security cameras, locks on every door, emphasize disproportionate anxiety. Schumer's policies are shaped by this imagined fear rather than factual data, illustrating how fixation on a narrow archetype can distort political priorities. Schumer's focus on the Baileys pulls the Democratic Party toward moderate or conservative positions. Animated arrows shift policy graphics rightward, while progressive voters fade in the background. The narrator emphasizes that the party becomes disconnected from its base and younger, diverse constituencies. Suburban imagery reinforces the narrow lens shaping national politics. This visual metaphor illustrates how political obsession with a fictional family constrains messaging and alienates real voters. Young, multicultural voters are shown at rallies for climate, healthcare, and student debt, but Schumer faces the opposite direction, addressing only the Baileys. Animated signs highlight ignored issues. The narrator stresses that fixation on a fictional demographic erodes engagement with actual, energized voters, weakening the party's connection to its base. Visual contrasts, vivid rallies versus muted suburban calm, emphasize the disconnect. Schumer is shown planning policy in a war room-style map labeled Bailey's Concerns, while actual voters wait outside the room. Arrows and graphs exaggerate his over-reliance on one imagined demographic. The narrator notes the absurdity. Relying on fictional characters for national political strategy isolates leadership from reality. Surreal camera angles emphasize the ridiculousness without losing the serious critique of misaligned policy focus. The scene animates the Baileys addressing Schumer directly. They reject his idealized image, revealing conservative, culturally reactionary views. The narrator emphasizes the contrast between Schumer's imagined moderate voters and the fictional couple's true positions. Animated gestures and expressions convey their frustration. This reveals the danger of projecting idealized traits onto voters that do not exist. The Baileys outline their fears: immigration, crime, and societal change, reinforcing their conservative leanings. Close-ups show Schumer scribbling confused notes as he tries to reconcile his assumptions with their true attitudes. The narrator notes that tailoring politics to such imagined anxieties risks alienating both real moderates and progressives. The scene balances satire and insight, highlighting the mismatch between political idealization and reality. Schumer is depicted in a parody-style advertisement, holding a cereal box labeled Bailey Strategy. The Baileys angrily throw it into a trash bin. The narrator underscores how absurd it is to ground real-world political decisions in fictional archetypes. Humor accentuates the critique, showing the futility of chasing an idealized middle-class voter. The Baileys' message shifts: engage real people, not us. Diverse communities, urban, rural, young, old, multicultural, surround Schumer. Animated infographics highlight voter priorities he ignores. The narrator emphasizes the need for politicians to address actual voters' concerns rather than fictional constructs. The scene presents a constructive pivot. National strategy must reflect complexity, not stereotypes. The video closes with Schumer waving goodbye to the ghostly Baileys as a stage curtain falls. Real voters applaud from the audience. The narrator notes that while the Baileys are fictional, the lesson is real. Political identity cannot be based on caricatures. Effective strategy requires listening to actual voters. Satire and humor underscore the critique without undermining its seriousness.